Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast. I'm Chris Larson. He's Al Escobedo. We are talking ice fishing. Still got some time to go here before the ice starts forming, but it's good to start getting excited. And one of the things that's going to start happening here pretty soon are those ice fishing shows. People are going to be out and about doing some shopping. And one of the things that tends to be on a lot of people's list, it's kind of like I think it's a fun thing to buy because it's like, you kind of get something custom, something nice. You feel like you're making a big purchase, but it's also not like $1,000 big purchase. It's within reach for a lot of people, but are fishing rods. And that's something that when I'm working the show, a lot of people come up and ask about, what rod they should buy and what they should be looking for. And we're going to do that today. But first, before we get into that, why is it important to get a nice rod? I mean, what do you get out of having a great fishing rod?
The best thing about having a quality fishing rod is going to be able to see or feel the bite. If you're using something that's not built for what you're doing, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities, just in missed opportunities, bites, and feeling the fish. And then also, if you're fishing for something bigger and you're not really set up heavy, you're risking equipment failures and stuff like that. But the big thing for me is, you want to if you're going to spend the time out there, you want to optimize the opportunity to catch those fish. And that little bit of difference between the different rods you have in your lineup can make a big difference. It's something like you said, it's not a break the bank purchase, but it can make a big difference on what you bring home in that bucket at the end of the night.
Yeah. And a lot of it, I hear this all the time, is like, I can go catch fish on any rod. And in some cases, it's probably true. But, if you're going out there and you've got a noodle rod that's set up for really light action stuff, and you're going to put a big spoon on there and try to chase burbot, it may not even be the fish that breaks the rod. It may be the lure itself and what you're doing to jig that thing up and down. It's just not going to work effectively the way that it should. So that's why a guy like Al, when you walk into, I don't even want to talk about walking into your gear room, but he's got a rod box set up for, using tungsten jigs for bluegills, and then you've got a rod box, for walleye fishing that's heavier stuff for jigs. But you have specific rods just for specific lures when you're ice fishing for panfish. Tell people a little bit about that.
So you got different options that you have, and each rod serves a different purpose. Every tip option, so you got your standard measurement of stiffness, your medium light, ultra light, but then you can start getting into tips, your extra fast, medium, and when you start really digging into it, every little change that you make to that rod can make a difference on how the bait reacts, how the action that you're getting in the bait. So if you're using something really, really light, really small, you can get away with those extra fast tips, and it's a little bit, with those small baits, them extra fast tips will give you a little bit better visual for the bite and gives you a little bit more action there. But if you're going to switch going crappie fishing to a little small spoon, you're still want to have an ultralight rod, but you don't want to go as light on the tip because you're not going to get that action on that spoon as your rod's just kind of springing it and slowly working, so you're getting that different action. But then you can get into rod lengths and sizes, different reel options. Big thing for me is rod length. I like to use a really short rod when I'm fishing outside of the house on windy, crappy days, so I can kind of use my body to block the hole, block the rod tip. Everything's kind of covered. If I have longer rods for if you want to just stand up and kind of just quick drop and walk around for when you're kind of locating fish. Those are great options as well. But the best thing I would say is when you're starting to look into a rod, just talk to the folks at the store, talk to the people that There's a lot of great rod manufacturers out there. These shows that are coming up this fall, there's going to be a lot of great rod manufacturers at those shows, and they can really show you some different options and physically show you the differences and kind of what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So when you talk about power, you've got ultralight, you got light, you got medium power, and that's just the strength of that rod. So a lot of your panfish rods are going to be ultralight. You know, as you move up into like even for the guys that are out there jigging pike or lake trout, they're typically going to use like a medium or medium heavy. And then you see action all the time. So you'll see, let's say, ultralight fast, and what that means is that rod tip, it bends higher it's more towards the tip. So if it's a fast action rod, basically the whole backbone of that rod is going to be pretty stiff, but the bend is really right at the end. And then as you go to a moderate action, that bend where it actually makes the bend moves further towards the handle. So if you get a slow action rod, that bend will come all the way down almost towards the handle. And the slow action rod is typically what you're going to see, like if you're going to go buy a lake trout rod, like they want you to use the entire spine of that rod when you're wrestling those bigger predator fish like northerns and lake trout. So that's kind of what you're looking at when you see that, when you see light fast or light ultra fast or light medium, or actually I think they call it moderate for that rod action. So those are things to look at. You talked a little bit about your best ice fishing rods for panfish. How about for walleyes? What should people be looking for there?
I personally like a medium light, and again, I use either a fast or an extra fast tip, depending on the baits that I'm using. Even with walleyes, I tend to use a lot of really small baits. My extra fast is usually what I go with. And I like it for a dead stick option as well with that extra fast tip. It just gives that fish a lot of time to take that dead stick before he realizes he's on there. You could go a little bit heavier if you're using, bigger baits, or start using the swim baits or big jigging baits. You get into like a medium with a little bit more moderate action. That's I kind of stick for walleyes right around the medium, and then just change the action on the tip based on the lure that I'm using.
And you talked a little bit about length, and you said you like a short rod outside, and that's something that, I understand. You're like, it's windy, I want to be close, and you're getting down over the hole. But one of the things that's really become a real trend in ice fishing is longer rods. And I think a lot of it is what you kind of said the second time, is that you don't have to kneel over the hole. And I don't know about you, but if I don't have to get down on my knees, I don't want to. I'd rather stand up. But the other thing, I think, when you're looking at rod length, and I always talk to people too, it's like, well, how do you fish?
Yep.
Are you fishing in a hard-sided house? Because usually the way a fish house is designed is you've got a couch and it's basically facing the other wall in the shack, and maybe those holes, like ice castles typically are going to have those holes really close to your feet, like a Yeti or something like that. Usually the holes are out a little bit further. You can get away with maybe a 32-inch rod, but a lot of the ice castles, like, you're going to be wanting to fish a 24 or 26 or 28. But the other thing is when you're setting that hook, your arm goes up, you got a big long rod there, you're going to be hitting the ceiling, ceiling fans, whatever you might have there. I used to have a flip over house.
I was going to say, flip overs are notorious for that, because you really don't think about that at all until you're flipped over and set.
Yeah, the new ones from Eskimo have the real tall ceilings, and I think you can get away with just about anything. But the older style flip overs, it was a short ceiling, and I remember hitting the rod tip on the roof all the time.
Yep, and pretty much every one man, if you're a guy that likes to go out and has a flip over one man, pretty much all of them, even like the bigger platform ones, still them shorter rods, just because that ceiling's so low. Just something to consider.
Yeah, so when you're out there, you're thinking about the length. I mean, a lot of people are going to tell you, get a long rod, you don't have to bend over. But if you find yourself sitting in a flip over all the time, it's not going to be a good experience for you. The other thing, though, that the advantage of that long rod too, I mean, we talk about not getting down on our knees, but when you're working a fish and it just doesn't want to go, and you keep coming up with it, keep moving that hand up and trying to get that fish to rise, the longer the rod tip is, just the more you can go without having to reel up. So that's another advantage too. So there's definitely advantages to longer rods, but just make sure that when you're doing it, you're using it for kind of a use case in a spot that's going to be really helpful for you. The other thing that we're going to run into when we're going to go out and shop for rods is you got graphite rods, you got fiberglass rods, you even got some hybrids out there. Can you tell people a little bit about the difference between graphite and fiberglass rods?
The fiberglass rods are going to tend to feel a little bit more stiff, but they're going to be a little bit lighter. Generally speaking, it's more of a for feel type rod, where your graphite rod is more going to be a visual bite indicator. You know, personal preference, I don't necessarily go one way or the other. I use some of each. But I know some guys will strictly use a fiberglass over the graphite. Those are generally the guys that are, again, feeling the bite or watching the line down the hole, that are going to be using those stiffer fiberglass style rods.
Yeah. The other thing we can talk about, I think we kind of went into a little bit about use cases and where you go, but handles. You know, you've got the cork, you've got synthetic, you've got foam. What do you like?
I really like the synthetic. I like really short. I like to get a real small grip, so I can, I want to keep my rod personally, my whole grip all in one hand, my one hand here. That's really what I'm looking for. Either I fish mainly with inline style reels, so it's just nice to have a nice small grip, and everything fits and comfortably in my hand the way I do it. But I know some guys like the longer ones, so they can kind of set it a little bit, you know, on their leg or however they do it. But I like the lightweight synthetic. The smallest option that they make on that particular rod is usually what I go with.
Yeah. And one of the things, so I'm a little bit different. I like a split grip handle because I always put my ring finger
On the
right on that little piece of split grip, and that's where I get my feel. And I don't know, I've gotten really used to fishing that way, and that's the way I like it. So I think the main thing I would tell you is figure out what you like, and when you're out shopping, find more rods like that you like and that you're comfortable with. And that's what a lot of this stuff really comes down to, is once you've used different rods, you're going to build confidence in a style. You're going to build confidence in, you know, I really like a 30-inch rod. You know, this is the action that I like based on how I fish. And then once you get that kind of dialed in, then it just really probably comes down to replicating it. Or if you're like, okay, I like it like this, but I want to go and try a different style of fishing, so I need to go find a rod for that too. So it's a lot of fun. I think it really it's just another thing. When you like to ice fish, you like to buy gear and accumulate gear, and it's just another way to do that.
Yep, it's another great little tool. Like you said, it's inexpensive. You can have a bunch of different ones, swap them out, play around, different reels, change them up, buy, sell, do it all. I have way too many at all times, and I'm always buying more. So it's amazing how different each one is by each different manufacturer. They might, you know, you could take this rod manufacturer's ultralight extra fast next to this, and they could both be carbon, and they feel so different. And it's, you know, so if you get the chance to play with different rods, and one thing I would say is, like, if you go out with a group of buddies and they're all using different rods, maybe if you're in the market and say, hey, you want to trade for, give me 15 minutes, I want to feel what your rod feels like, try the different ones and see what feels good to you. And when it comes to rod selection, I think it's really important that you keep in mind your own personal style of fishing and how you like to fish, because in reality, there's no wrong way to do it. There's no, this is the rod you need, it's all whatever you like to use. You're gonna run into 10 guys, and one guy's gonna start making fun of you for the rod that you have set up. But you know, if it works for you, it works for you, and that's the most important thing. Yeah.
And the other thing that I think I wanted to cover in any way is, like, you go to a show and there's a rack of rods, and I saw some last year for like $12. And then you walk over and there's a rack of rods and they're like $125 a piece. And, you know, people ask me because, and I'm sure you too, you've got rods in your bag that are 125, 150 high-end ice fishing rods. And they're like, do you really need this? And I would say that it's a lot like luxury cars, and that I think you can drive from point A to point B in an inexpensive car, but it does feel a lot nicer to be in a leather seat with a sunroof and all the bells and whistles. So do you really need it? I would say no. And if you're getting started and you just need to build yourself a set of rods and you don't have the money to buy $125 rods, then buy yourself some inexpensive rods, get your fleet kind of set up, and then as you go, you can upgrade a few, and you can kind of sample some of those brands and figure out, oh, I really like this brand, or I really like that brand, and I really like a graphite rod for walleyes, or I really like a fiberglass rod here, and, you know, kind of go from there. But if you're getting started and you got to buy an auger, and you got to buy a shelter, you got to buy a ton of things, and you want to, like, I just need to get some rods so I can go fishing. I mean, I remember when I first started, I mean, I went and bought a whole bunch of rods at an auction, and I still have some of those in my collection. And it's like, if I go out and there's a bunch of teenagers going with me, usually it's, take this one.
Yep.
You know? So if you break that one, I'm not going to have a heart attack, you know, but, and that's the thing too, is like sometimes those inexpensive rods really come in handy in that if you're fishing with people that you're not really sure how they're going to handle your gear, you can just hand them that, and if something happens, it's not a big deal. So don't be afraid to pick up those rods. I think once you start getting fishing and really getting serious about it, you're going to want to upgrade to nicer stuff. But I think, you know, if you're getting started, get what you can afford. Anything else?
I think that should do it.
I think we covered it. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. If you're on YouTube, drop in the comments your favorite ice fishing rod. If you're on the podcast platforms, thanks for listening. And you can hop over to the Catch Cover YouTube and watch this as well. And ice fishing shows season is coming up real soon here. And if you see either one of us, make sure you come up and say hi. Until next time, he's Al, I'm Chris. We'll talk to you later.